So Dutch people take this saying, make hay while the sun shines, to a literal level. And yesterday I was watching the news and the weather came on, and you can tell from the excitement that when there's going to be good weather, everybody feels good about it. So today, the zon schijnt heel fel. Buiten is het lekker warm, so I decided to take advantage of it and sit here and talk to you about something. I mean, the weather is not the reason why anybody would move to the Netherlands. But for me today, I'm talking about all the other reasons why anybody would want to move to the Netherlands. And when I do look on my analytics or YouTube niche, I wouldn't say niche, but the kind of topics I talk about lately, it's saturated with American content. And I thought, the reasons for wanting to move to the Netherlands might be similar thematically to mine, but the realities are not the same. So I need to share my own thoughts, and yeah, for people that look like me or are like me who can relate to them. So yes, I decided to come out today and talk about the advantages or the reasons why anyone would want to move to the Netherlands today. And as the weather is good, like I said, I'll be walking around and doing bits and pieces of it, so come along with me. So I know there's a big wave about diasporans moving back home, and a lot of African countries making it easy for them to do so. For example, in Ghana, with a year of return that started in 2019, all the way down to beyond the return. And the fact that, citizenship is being dished out like freebies to just make it easier for people who want to relocate or move to Ghana. And the question is, why will people who have been living there all their lives want to leave? Why? I mean, is it that bad? So those are the things that I want to share from the perspective of somebody who was born and bred in Ghana, now living in the Netherlands. So let's get to the first one, which is the quality of life, for example. So I know when it comes to the quality of life, it feels like comparing apples to oranges, which may not seem fair, but it's something that I need to talk about because maybe my orange was tasting a little bit sour for me, and that's why I decided to look for something different. And I've noticed that in the Netherlands, the standard of quality it cuts across. It doesn't matter where you live, whether it's a big city or small town or crowded place or not so crowded place. It's pretty much the same. And I've been to a few places in the Netherlands, and I realized that no matter what it is or where it is, there's a certain design or structure to it that will not make you feel like you are being disadvantaged in any way from how somebody would live in a big city. You have everything you need if you can afford it. So as long as, for example, if your life is very average even, and all you can afford is your food and your water and your shelter, you will live a good quality life because there are social amenities like parks, sports facilities that are open to people to use, the roads, the cycling lanes, like everything is by design, which makes it easier for people to have habits like the culture of just going for walks or runs, and it's just easier. And even, for example, you want your own food, or you want to eat out, there are so many options. You want to cook your own food. There are chains and chains of stores with varying degrees of prices. If you want the very cheap ones, you know where to go. If you want the normal ones that everybody goes to, you know where to go. And the products and produces in there are of standardized quality. It's not that because you're going to a place which is slightly cheaper, you're going to get something, or you're going to be eating poison or anything. So it makes it easier for you to live here and have a certain quality of life. That is exactly what I'm trying to say. Versus, and I don't want to sound bitter, versus where I come from. So if you want to live a quality life, you have to spend more, versus the average person can live a quality life here if they choose to, and there's options for it, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah, so not so future Kwame here. I forgot to mention when I was talking about the quality of life and availability of food and options and all these things, that since we moved here, for example, we actually cook a lot more because we're able to plan our meals. There's so many options that you can buy or afford to buy, and that makes life better for us, because if you want to spend out, trust me, you will feel it in your pocket. So it's good to have the option to not spend so much if you don't have to. Yeah, so the sun is really, really high and I can barely see what I'm looking at, but I hope that I'm not blown out. But the next one is about education, and I think education was a no-brainer for me because I had told myself, I promised myself that I wasn't going to spend the amount of money that if you want a certain kind of quality of education in Ghana, you would have to spend. And another no-brainer fact was the fact that my son is a Dutch citizen, and it will be easier to take advantage of that than stay in Ghana and pay extreme amounts. I mean, even expats that live in Ghana would agree that when it comes to paying for quality education that they are used to in Ghana, it's rather on the high side. And yeah, I mean, if you look at it, in my previous video, daycare is expensive, but that's only if you're paying everything upfront. With my wife being a Dutch citizen who's a tax-paying Dutch citizen, she is entitled to subsidies, and the subsidies are high enough to cover almost all the costs for your daycare. And that's like as simple as it can get. And Dutch education worldwide is very high ranking. From age 4, my son gets to have free education from kindergarten all the way till the time he has to go to the university. So I don't think it's something that anybody would overlook if they can take advantage of and say that they would rather choose to stay where they will pay exorbitant prices for the value that they may not get when they can get it for free somewhere else. So yeah, that's basically it for education. So the next reason I'm going to talk about is family, something I should have probably led with. But yeah, for as long as we've been together, my wife and I have lived in Ghana. And of course, if you are a mixed cultural family, that means that you're separated or you're not getting both families in the same space because they live in different countries. And my wife's connections, I mean, her childhood connections and everything are in Netherlands. So even me, sometimes I wondered how she was coping with everything, but she did. And I guess it was time to live closer to the family here in Netherlands as well, for them to also enjoy us being close to them. And when she got back, she's had a great amount of time spending quality time with her family, her siblings, visiting her friends, you know, babysitting and everything. So I guess one of the reasons why any multicultural family would also move would be to bridge the gap between the two families, or marrying from two continents or something. So I know I did mention in my previous video that the Dutch system can be a bit rigid or inflexible at times, but I also did mention that when it works, it does work. It works extremely well, and that makes you feel safe, or it's reliable. For example, insurance is mandatory, you have to pay it. And I know, for example, that if I have to go to a hospital, that I will be covered when it does. If somebody's looking for information on me for official reasons, all they have to do is to access my BSN, and they get a head start information on what they need to know about me. That is a reliable system. If somebody wants to access institutional websites, all they need is the DGD, and it's just as easy as that. For example, with insurance being mandatory, my son had a medical emergency in the first few weeks we were here, and the response was swift. It was easy. He was safe. I mean, we were frantic about it because it was a medical emergency, but it was good to know that he was safe and he was covered because the system actually works. And coming back from where I just left off with the system working, I'm going to talk about healthcare, but not in a traditional sense, even though I did mention that when my son had a medical emergency, everything was taken care of because we were within the confines of a working system and paying our insurance and everything. But the other thing I wanted to even talk about in terms of healthcare is related to mental health care, and I see how a society like this one actually pays attention to helping people who have mental health challenges cope and have the necessary care they need. And coming from where I come from, it's a bit difficult to come to terms with when you know that a lot of people's mental health issues could be dealt with in the most empathetic way, yet society doesn't have infrastructure, and even the culture of care doesn't even exist. So to see that it's something that is common and regular and accessible to everybody here is a breath of fresh air. So healthcare is great. I mean, there are quirks to the healthcare, also in culture shocks, maybe in another video I'll make, but it's good. It's really good to see that such facilities exist for people who struggle with mental health conditions. So I've done a big loop and I'm back to the same spot I started the recording from. I'm a bit tired. I don't know if you can tell, but the thing I want to talk about with culture is, I mean, most people will say, where's the Dutch culture? I'm not talking about the traditional sense of what culture means to a lot of people in places like Ghana or West Africa, or places that have traditions and certain practices. No, I'm talking about culture in terms of the way of life here. And I like how I like the liberal mindset, if I should put it that way, that it's although people have their reservations and they're conservative, but people are free to be who they want to be, and so long as you're not harming anybody in the process of being who you want to be, you can be as expressive as you want. There are other bits which is controversial with, for example, recreational cannabis being legal and all these things. People just minding their business and keeping to themselves. I think it's a nice way to live, and it will segue into the other bits of safety as well. I mean, the infrastructure here makes you feel safe. It's well designed. Almost every street is well lit all the time. Cycling can happen with all the cycling lanes because it's designed in such a way. Here I see that kids go to school by themselves, and that's also another thing with the safety bits, that I think there's a rule, or it's a general rule, that you cannot go to school outside your municipality, which means that your neighborhood has those facilities to cater for your education, and you don't have to worry about the quality like I already mentioned. So there's not, unless you want to do privates, it's not necessary for you to leave your neighborhood just because you don't think you get the kind of quality that you're looking for. So it's safe. You see children go to school by themselves here and come home, and it's normal, it's fine. So these are some of the few things that I would mention, or I would say that are some of the reasons why the Netherlands was choice after we stayed in Ghana for a while. And yeah, here we are. As at the time you're watching this video, I think it's about 8 months now. So I did say Bouters het lekker warm in my intro, but I think I lied. De zon schijnt heel fel, ja, maar het is niet warm. So I'm going back home, and yeah, bye bye.